And as you speak those words with unwavering faith, something begins to stir, not outside of you but deep within your consciousness. For it is not the outer world that holds the power to give or withhold wealth. It is your inner conviction, your spiritual certainty that draws all things to you. The moment you command your money to multiply, you have already shifted the energy. You have declared a new order in the unseen realm, and that realm always precedes the physical. The laws of spirit are not delayed by time or circumstance. They respond to vibration, to belief, to your words spoken in faith. And because money is now your faithful servant, you treat it with reverence, not fear. You no longer curse it or speak of it as if it were absent. You speak of it as a living presence, a divine current, flowing endlessly to and through your life. You understand now that money is not evil, nor is it a reward for hard labor. It is a form of energy, responding not to effort but to alignment. You do not have to exhaust yourself to receive it. You have to be in harmony with it. And that harmony begins in your thoughts, in your emotions, in your words. You speak to money as you would to a trusted friend. You bless it when it arrives, and you bless it as it goes, knowing it always returns multiplied. You have erased the old programs that told you to hoard, to fear, to strive endlessly, without reward. Those beliefs are no longer yours. They belong to a former self who did not know the power of the spoken word, but now you do. And because you do, everything has changed. The air around you vibrates differently. Your field has shifted. You are no longer magnetic to struggle. You are magnetic to supply. Every time you receive money, no matter the amount, you say, "Thank you, divine substance. Multiply, grow, increase, and return in perfect order." This is not just a ritual, it is an activation. You are speaking directly to the law, and the law never fails to respond. Where others see randomness, you see rhythm. Where others wait for luck, you operate by law. That is the difference between living by chance and living by truth. You are no longer a silent participant in your financial life. You are the voice that shapes it. You no longer shrink in guilt when money arrives, nor do you panic when it appears to be less. You stand firm, knowing appearances are just that, appearances. And what you see is always a shadow of what you've been affirming. So if you desire a different picture, you paint it with your word. If you want more, you do not strive, you decree. And even when doubt whispers, even when logic tries to convince you to play small again, you answer with certainty. I am the master of substance. I command and it obeys. I speak and it forms. I sow and I reap, always. Because the truth has no need to prove itself. It only needs to be believed. So you continue, calmly, confidently, joyfully. You do not measure your worth by your balance, but by your awareness of divine connection. You no longer wait for someone to give you permission to prosper. You have already given yourself that permission. You have already claimed the truth, and because you have, the entire universe bends to fulfill the word you have spoken. Money, multiply forever, and it shall. And as you continue to walk in this truth, a quiet confidence begins to rise in you, not the kind that shouts or seeks approval, but the kind that knows. You no longer reach outward for validation. You've tapped into the eternal source within, and that connection is unshakable. You have become a steward of spiritual riches, and with each breath you are aligning more deeply with the divine pattern of increase. There is no fear in this path, because fear has no place where divine law governs. You no longer fear loss, because you now understand what comes from God can never be taken away by man. You are not the victim of fate, economy, or circumstance. You are a creator made in the image of the infinite. Your finances no longer rise and fall with the world's noise, because you've placed your wealth on higher ground, on spiritual law. That law is eternal. It cannot be manipulated by external forces. It responds only to faith, to vibration, to the energy of your word. And your word now carries weight, because it is not idle, it is intentional. Every time you speak about your finances, you do so with clarity and certainty. Gone are the careless statements of lack. You now speak with purpose, knowing every syllable is a seed. You no longer say, "I can't afford this," because that is not the language of a commander. You say, "My wealth expands in divine timing and perfect ways." You no longer say, "Money is tight," because that chokes the flow. You say, "Money flows freely and joyfully into my life." You do not joke about being broke or entertain thoughts of scarcity. You have matured spiritually. You understand the creative power of your consciousness, and just as you wouldn't plant weeds in a garden you love, you refuse to plant words that produce struggle, and so the universe responds. Not with flashes of drama, but with gentle, steady manifestations that multiply over time. A bill is unexpectedly paid. A refund arrives. A client appears. A door opens. An idea drops in like lightning, and that idea changes everything. These are not coincidence, they are confirmations. Evidence that the command has been heard, and the law is fulfilling it exactly as designed. There is no resistance in the law, only response. And when you remove resistance from your own heart, resistance in the form of doubt, impatience, or unworthiness, the manifestations become even swifter. You start to notice how your relationship with money is no longer strained, but relaxed. There is ease where there used to be tension. There is flow where there used to be fear. You no longer look at a price tag with anxiety, but with calm assurance that your supply is unlimited. And as you keep affirming, money multiplies under grace, you realize that grace has been guiding you all along, quietly, faithfully, consistently. And now you're ready for more, not because you're desperate, but because you're aligned. And because you are now aligned, you begin to move differently. Your energy has changed. You walk into rooms with a quiet power, no longer shrinking to fit small spaces created by fear. You speak with calm authority, not to impress, but because you no longer question your own truth. Money feels this shift in you. It senses that you are no longer uncertain or hesitant. You have become a clear vessel, and divine substance loves clarity. It rushes in to fill the space you've made by releasing the old stories. You no longer carry the vibration of survival. You radiate the frequency of abundance. There is no more chasing. That part of your life is complete. Now you attract. You draw to you what you are in harmony with. You don't need to knock on locked doors, because the right ones swing open as you approach. You don't plead for opportunities. You are the opportunity. You are the divine vessel through which spirit expresses wealth, and that wealth appears in expected and unexpected ways. Money does not run from you. It is drawn to your presence, to your vibration, to the command you've spoken and continue to live out daily. You have made peace with prosperity. You no longer see it as something foreign or reserved for others. You no longer feel shame in receiving. That shame was never yours, it was taught to you. But you've unlearned it. You now understand that wealth is not selfish, it is sacred. It is how good flows through you to bless others. The more you have, the more you give, the more you give, the more you receive. This divine circulation is not limited by logic or numbers. It is governed by grace, and grace is infinite. So now, money is no longer a stressor, it is a signal. It reflects your inner alignment. When it slows, you don't panic, you realign. You return to your word, you return to truth. You speak again with fresh certainty. Money multiplies in my hands. Divine supply is constant and overflowing. I am one with the source of all wealth. These are not affirmations you merely recite, they are realities you embody. They are the laws you live by, not just in moments of hope, but in moments of challenge. And when fear tries to visit, as it always does in times of expansion, you do not resist it with panic. You recognize it, then replace it. You remind yourself that fear is a lie, a shadow that cannot exist in the light of your truth. You take a breath, you center yourself, and you return to the divine decree that has become your foundation. I command my money to multiply forever. And because you say it in full belief, the law continues to act, the flow continues to grow, and prosperity becomes your natural state, not someday, but now. And now that prosperity has become your natural state, you no longer wait for evidence to feel secure, you are the evidence. Your very presence carries the vibration of abundance. It's in your thoughts, your words, your posture, your decisions. You have anchored wealth into your identity, and the world mirrors it back to you in ways that feel effortless yet profound. Every day becomes a divine demonstration of your belief. You no longer look outside of yourself for signs. You walk as the sign, and as you walk, money follows. For you have become the path of least resistance. The need to hustle fades away, not because you are idle, but because you are no longer misaligned. Your action now flows from inspiration, not anxiety. You no longer act from desperation or fear of missing out. You act from knowing. You act from divine timing, from spiritual prompting. And this shift in motive changes everything. You get more done with less strain. The right people come to you. The right doors open with perfect ease. The old way of forcing and fighting has ended, and a new way of trusting and receiving has begun. You understand now that wealth is not something you run after, it is something you radiate. It is not stored in the bank first, it is stored in your consciousness, and you've become rich within. Rich in clarity, rich in peace, rich in expectation. You carry an inner certainty that money must obey your word, because your word is no longer scattered or weak, it is concentrated, deliberate, and backed by spiritual authority. And when you speak, the universe listens. You've made peace with time too. You no longer feel pressure in waiting. You don't panic when results don't appear instantly. You know the seed always takes root beneath the surface before it breaks through the soil. You no longer dig up what you've planted with doubt and fear. You speak, and you let it grow. You affirm and you trust the process. Because divine timing is perfect, and your harvest is inevitable. And so you continue to affirm, not to convince the world, but to keep yourself in the flow. Money is drawn to me through channels of ease and grace. Wealth multiplies through the spoken word. I live in permanent prosperity. These declarations are no longer rituals, they are the rhythm of your life, they are the breath of your belief. You don't just say them, you feel them, you live them, you become them. Even in moments where the outer world seems quiet, you no longer doubt. You know that unseen forces are working. You know that substance is moving. You know that the multiplication has already begun, and nothing can reverse it. You have commanded your money to multiply, and now you are the vessel through which that divine multiplication flows forever, without limit and in perfect order. And as that divine multiplication flows through you, you begin to notice something even more profound. You're no longer trying to get money, you're simply letting it come. You've stepped out of the old energy of pursuit and into the higher frequency of allowing. There is no push, no pull, no tension. Just a steady, quiet confidence that what belongs to you will always find you, because you are no longer in resistance to it. You've become open, receptive, and worthy, words you used to hear, but now embody. You don't feel guilty for receiving anymore. In fact, you've released the belief that your blessings must be earned through suffering. That illusion has dissolved. You've outgrown the idea that wealth must follow hardship. You now understand that divine substance flows according to belief, not sacrifice. Your worth was never in question, only your awareness of it was. And now that your awareness has expanded, so too has your capacity to receive. You are no longer apologizing for your abundance. You recognize that your prosperity serves a greater purpose. You've become generous without fear. Giving no longer feels like loss, it feels like expansion. You give with joy because you know the law cannot be broken. Whatever you send out in faith returns pressed down, shaken together, and running over. So you give your time, your energy, your money, your presence, not from obligation but from overflow. You're not depleting yourself to be spiritual, You're rising into truth and becoming the example of what divine wealth looks like in human form. There's a new rhythm to your life now. Peace is your foundation, and clarity is your compass. You don't ask for signs with doubt in your heart, you speak them into being. I expect miracles, you say, and miracles begin to happen. I live in a constant flow of abundance, and that flow becomes visible in ways that leave you speechless, not because you're surprised it's working, but because you're finally experiencing the joy of being in alignment with the divine. And now, you dream bigger, not because you're greedy, but because you're free. You've cleared out the old limits. You no longer ask, can I afford it? You ask, is it aligned? Because you know the money will come to match the vision, if the vision was born from spirit. You no longer base your life on your bank account, you base it on your faith, and that faith has become unshakable. Not blind, not frantic, just rooted. You walk in a world that still fears lack, but you've become a quiet lighthouse, an example that wealth and peace can coexist. That spiritual truth and material abundance are not enemies, but partners. That commanding your money to multiply was never about greed, it was about alignment, expansion, and trust. And now that you trust, the universe responds with more than you ever imagined, always multiplying, always increasing forever. And as the universe continues to respond, more and more effortlessly, you begin to feel the sacredness of this entire process. What once felt like a struggle now feels like communion. You are not merely speaking words into the air, you are speaking directly to the divine, and the divine is answering you through open doors, quiet nudges, divine appointments, and unexpected increase. You have finally come into the awareness that money is not a lifeless object to be chased or feared, it is living substance, intelligent, responsive, vibrational, and it listens to the tone of your belief far more than the volume of your voice. You have grown into this knowing. It was not forced, nor rushed, it was a gentle unfolding, a remembering, the shedding of old mental garments that once clothed you in scarcity. Now you are robed in abundance. You no longer try to convince the world of your prosperity, you embody it so fully that the world feels it before you ever say a word. You don't speak about lack, even in jest. You don't entertain doubt, even when others around you still carry its weight. You are rooted in the knowing that the divine law cannot fail, and you, being one with it, cannot be left out of its blessings. This has given you a deep, unshakable calm. You are no longer rushing, proving, or striving. You've discovered the divine pace, slow enough to be present, fast enough to stay in flow. There is no anxiety about how long things will take, because you now know that your manifestations are not coming from effort, but from alignment. And alignment is not hard, it is simple, sacred, and always available. You return to it with a breath, with a word, with a shift in attention. You know now that money is drawn to joy, to clarity, to expectancy, and you live in those states more often than not. The conversations you have with yourself have changed. You no longer speak words of "I don't know how," but instead you say, "I know it is being handled." You don't ask the universe for permission, you declare your divine rights. You don't seek signs of worth, you walk in the worth you were born with. And because you've claimed that space, the law of increase rushes in to fill every area of your life, not just finances, but peace, love, ideas, health, and opportunity. You are now the evidence of what happens when someone commands their money to multiply and never looks back. You are no longer trying to become wealthy, you have become it within. And from this sacred center, wealth radiates outward, touching everything you do and everyone you meet. It is no longer a wish or a vision on the horizon, it is who you are, multiplied, expanded, free, and still the increase continues, not because you chase it, but because you have become the channel through which it flows forever. You no longer plead for provision, because the one who pleads does not yet know their identity. But you, awakened soul, are beginning to remember. You are not separate from the source, you are an extension of it. Infinite wealth is not somewhere far away, waiting to be earned through struggle. It is here, now, pulsing through your very being, responding to the thoughts you nurture and the words you speak. Every time you affirm your dominion, you call forth the storehouses of supply that were always waiting to be opened by your command. This is not arrogance, it is divine alignment. The rose does not apologize for blooming, and neither should you apologize for commanding your life into abundance. You were never meant to live in lack. That idea was taught to you by fear, not truth. And now, truth is reclaiming its throne in your heart. You have spoken with authority, and your command echoes through the universe: multiply, increase, expand, forever. That is your decree, and it is now law in the realm of the unseen. Money begins to move, ideas begin to flow, opportunities rearrange themselves, people remember your name, your gifts are recognized, all because you stood in your divine identity and gave the command. What once seemed impossible now unfolds with ease, not by force but by flow. The moment you ceased chasing and began commanding, everything shifted. You are no longer the seeker, you are the sower, and every word you plant in faith is a seed destined to multiply. You do not worry about the how. The law does not need your strategy, it needs your certainty. Your only job is to stay in agreement with your command, to walk, speak, act, and feel as though it is already done, because in truth it is. The delay is only ever in your recognition of what has already begun. So you move forward, not with desperation, but with peace. You no longer echo the language of lack. You speak from abundance, because you live from it. Every affirmation you utter builds a new foundation. Every declaration of increase becomes a divine instruction. And every breath you take now confirms the truth. You are the commander of wealth, and money is your faithful servant. And from this place of divine flow, something beautiful begins to unfold. You begin to realize that wealth is no longer separate from your identity. It's not a destination you arrive at, it is the atmosphere you carry. It follows you because it comes from within you. You could walk into an empty room and abundance would still surround you, because your consciousness fills the space before anything physical appears. You no longer need proof to believe, you believe, and therefore the proof manifests. This is the divine reversal of the world's thinking, and it has now become your way of life. You wake up each day not wondering if money will come, but expecting it to. And even more than that, you expect it to come in ways that are delightful, surprising, and aligned. You no longer tolerate misaligned energy disguised as opportunity. You do not accept struggle as a rite of passage. You've let go of hustle as your identity. You've let go of fear as your compass. Now you allow intuition to lead, peace to guide, and divine instruction to shape your decisions. And that inner instruction never leads you to lack, it always leads you to increase. You trust what you feel more than what you see, because you've come to know the truth. The invisible realm is the origin of all visible results. So when appearances contradict your vision, you don't flinch. You don't collapse into worry. You remember who you are and who you serve. You remember the law you've put into motion. You hold your inner posture, and because of that, reality shifts around you to match what you've already claimed. There's power in how you carry yourself now. It's not just the words you say, it's the energy behind them. When you declare money multiplies in my hands, you feel it in your bones. When you affirm I command increase, you do so with the knowing that the universe is already responding. That kind of faith doesn't come from hoping, it comes from experience, and you've now tasted the truth enough times to trust it completely. People around you begin to notice. They may not know what changed, but they feel something different. It's your alignment, it's your peace, it's your presence. You no longer shrink or dim yourself to avoid discomfort. You allow yourself to expand freely, knowing that your expansion gives others permission to rise too. You are no longer just manifesting for yourself. You are becoming a demonstration of what is possible for others. And the more you embody this truth, the less effort is required. You don't have to force results anymore. You've aligned with divine law, and that law is perfect, precise, and faithful. You've planted the seeds, watered them with your word, and stood guard over your soil with your faith. Now the harvest must come. It cannot be otherwise. because you've spoken, and the word has gone forth. You've commanded, and the universe has obeyed. And as the universe obeys your command, you find yourself stepping into a new level of ease, a divine ease that doesn't come from inaction, but from trust. You no longer carry the old burden of trying to figure everything out. You don't need to control every detail. You've discovered the sacred art of allowing, and in that allowing, you find greater power than you ever did in force. You've stopped trying to make things happen, and instead have chosen to let them unfold, not from laziness, but from divine partnership. You have done your part, you have spoken the word, aligned the belief, held the vision, and now the law must do the rest. This is where miracles become normal. This is where acceleration occurs. You no longer walk toward abundance. Abundance begins to walk toward you. Opportunities are drawn to your frequency. Resources appear without strain. Divine timing replaces frantic deadlines. You are still active, still creative, still doing, but now you are being led, not driven. There's no panic, no pressure. There's presence, there's direction, and there's an unshakable knowing that everything you've declared is already in motion. You begin to see increase in ways that go beyond money. Your conversations shift, your relationships deepen, your ideas become clearer. Solutions reveal themselves before the problem even fully forms. There is grace where there once was resistance. There is progress where there once was stagnation. You realize that your money multiplying was never meant to be an isolated miracle. It was the signal of a total transformation, an inner shift that touches everything it encounters. And even as the blessings pour in, you remain grounded. You know that your source is not the check, the client, the platform, or the business. Your source is divine, and that source is unlimited. It's not attached to one avenue. That's why you don't panic if one door closes. You know 7 more are about to open. You don't chase what's leaving. You welcome what's arriving. You don't beg life to favor you. You walk as one already favored. Each moment becomes a point of creation. Every word you speak is now filtered through a higher awareness. You ask yourself, does this word build my future or block it? And you choose carefully, not out of fear, but out of reverence for the power you carry. You no longer speak against your own progress. You no longer reinforce cycles you've outgrown. Instead, your language becomes a sacred tool, your thoughts a fertile ground, your belief a magnet that draws everything good into your life, and still you remain open, open to receive more, open to become more, not from greed, but from purpose. You understand that the more you receive, the more you can extend. Your overflow is not just for your comfort, it's for your calling, it's for the healing of others. And now, as your money multiplies, so does your light, so does your impact, so does your ability to bring heaven closer to earth. And as your light expands with your abundance, something even deeper begins to awaken within you. A sense of divine responsibility, not the heavy kind, rooted in guilt or obligation, but the sacred kind that comes from being entrusted with greater influence. You realize that your wealth is not just for comfort, it's a tool for impact, a vessel for divine expression, a channel for good to flow into the world through you. The more your money multiplies, the more lives it can touch, and this awareness humbles you. It anchors you. It reminds you that you are part of something much greater than yourself. You are no longer concerned with simply having more. You are focused on becoming more aligned, more obedient to inner guidance, more devoted to the unseen law that governs all form. You don't need to scream to be heard or prove your worth through accumulation. You walk quietly, confidently, knowing that the wealth you carry within is eternal and cannot be shaken. That energy moves ahead of you, opening doors before you even knock, making room for you in spaces you once thought were beyond reach. You've become a portal for divine increase, and with each act of generosity, each inspired idea, each silent prayer spoken over your finances, the universe confirms what you already know. You are operating under a higher economy. You are no longer limited to the world's systems. You're no longer dependent on logic or projections. Your prosperity is governed by spiritual law, and that law never sleeps, never forgets, never fails. It multiplies what you bless. It expands what you affirm. It attracts what you deeply believe is already yours. This is why you stay so mindful of your energy. You protect your peace, not out of avoidance, but because you understand it's the container for all manifestation. You no longer expose yourself to fear-based conversations about money. You don't join in complaining or rehearsing lack. You don't allow panic to enter your temple. You are fierce with your focus and gentle with your faith. You let your life speak for itself, not in noise, but in demonstration. And every day you return to your center. You revisit your truth. You speak the word again, not out of desperation, but out of joy. Money multiplies in my life. Wealth surrounds me. I give and receive with ease. I walk in overflow. These are not hopes. They are decrees. They are laws being activated by your unwavering belief. And as you declare them, you feel your entire being come into alignment. Your heart opens wider. Your faith settles deeper. Your purpose becomes clearer. You are no longer the one reaching. You are now the one embodying. Embodying the wealth, the wisdom, the grace that was always within you. And from this embodiment, there is no limit to what can be created, no end to what can be received, no boundary to what can be given, because now you have become the vessel. Now you are the command made flesh.